Yeah, we're absolutely thrilled to be here. Been fortunate, a number of guys on the staff to be at the Cotton Bowl before. A lot of the majority of the players, if not all, certainly most, their first experience down here. But this is big time. This is when you get into coaching. And I think I was telling my son, the first thing you think about that to play in a January Bowl is what's the phrase? As big time as it could possibly get. And one of those being the Cotton Bowl and the reception that you get in Dallas, the reception you have by the Cotton Bowl staff, is thrilled. And then to have a quality season that you don't just happen to be a Cotton Bowl team, and that certainly goes for an opponent as well. You know, watching Tulane on film, we have history with them going back to a year ago at Oklahoma. Obviously, different spot, different guys, and all that stuff. But there's some familiar faces, and they gave us all we could handle. So a lot of respect for that program, the season that they put together. And again, they earned the right to be here just like we did. And you know, they can call themselves, conference champions. We can't. And so that's a feather in their cap. And I'll be excited to play on January 2nd.
All right, if you have a question, raise your hand, put your name and affiliation. We'll start up here in the front.
Ryan Young, TruthSports.com. Alex, we talked a lot about the process of this first year. That's almost over. When you look at the whole thing in its entirety, what do you feel you accomplished defensively this year? How do you feel about the progress that you made?
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer that jumps right off is not enough. I mean, you're charged with having a championship level defense at USC. You signed up for that, and we played good enough defense 11 times. We didn't play good enough defense 2 times, but I don't take a lot of solace in that. We are expected to have a championship level defense, and we weren't able to do that in the 22 season. I think one of the things is from a learning curve standpoint, and I may talk for the next half hour on this, but because we've had a month to kind of assess some things. And number one, 22 is not over yet. We got one more opportunity with this group to, like we said, play a quality opponent, play at a high level, and you still got a chance to be a champion. You can be a Cotton Bowl champion at the end of this deal, and then win 12 games. And we are working our tails off to get that done. But the expectation is playing championship level defense and play winning defense. And winning defense is not just winning the game, because we didn't play winning defense 11 times this year, and that's fact. That was good enough to win 11 games. And that's where we're at, is having an understanding, number one, what that takes. And then number two, it's not just the knowing; it's all ultimately going out and doing it. And that's not unique to USC. I mean, but making sure that the guys have an understanding. Winning defense is finishing plays, finishing drives. We've struggled to finish plays at certain times. Plays have surprised us, which then equates to either a dropped interception or a missed sack or a missed tackle. And that's a frustration. We haven't finished drives the appropriate way. That's third down defense. We haven't finished halves the appropriate way. The points scored in the second quarter. We haven't finished the great games the appropriate way. Case in point, the Pac-12 championship game. And that's not the only game that is kind of reared its ugly head. And so, championship level defense, winning defense, is being finishers and having an expectation in every single play that you might be 1/11th, but you're the most important one on every single down. Again, that's not unique to us. This is a challenge in 2022. Flip the page here quickly in 23. Talking about offense, explosives, offenses. And if you're not careful, you'll default to being okay, just being okay. And so it pains me to say that that's what we've been the bulk of the year. We're still learning. You try to bend reality to the situation that you're in. We had an opportunity to play for a championship, and we couldn't bend reality far enough to get that thing done. But it's exciting. It really is. I mean, I think some of it is every single guy in the program. I told you I was going to go long. Every single guy's at different levels. Some of the guys just, it's time. We're excited about young guys in the program. Some older guys, man, they just need more reps. God dang, if you get one more rep of it, which is the beauty of having one more game this season. And for other guys, changing their expectation level. And in terms of what their Saturdays look like, not just being a participant, but playing at a high level. And so it goes on. If it was, do you build a program in 12 months? You wish you can. And I don't know specifically, can you build a defense in 12 months? I don't know if you can build a defense in 5 years, because it's onward. It's different. It's ever changing. But that's the challenge, and it's an exciting challenge for every single one of us. And I think the needle's pointing up, and the progress hasn't shown up enough on Saturdays. But believe me, we're excited about where this thing's going.
Ryan Carchi, Ryan Cartier, LA Times. Alex, in terms of that progress, how much do you have to just sort of maybe even look inward at your own approach when you look back on this season, or how much does that have to change? Obviously the roster will change heading into next year, but you personally, do you have to make changes to the defense heading into next
No,
year?
you always look at it. I mean, you look at it every week, and that's the appropriate thing to do. And you got to have kind of your eyes wide open, and then you got to be willing to be very self-critical, and that it starts there. Okay, how can we put the guys in a position to be more successful? And is it that simple? And then you say, if that individual does the things that we're coaching them to do, could we have better success on that play? If that individual does it with more effort, could we have had success on that play? What we will not do is change things based on an outcome of a play that an individual doesn't do the things he's coached to do. So the first thing we're going to do it right, and then we're going to evaluate it. Okay, the number 2 receiver catches a dig drop, or catches a dig route in a championship game, and you have an individual on your defense described as the dig dropper, right? And it doesn't take the dig. Now, then you got to look at it through the lens of, okay, then how can you coach him better? That doesn't reflect well on you as a coach, and that's not throwing daggers at your players. Saying, now, wait a second, what am I doing to put conflict in his head? You say, okay, that's. There's pressure more. If you play zone, obviously we should play man. If they have success against the zone, you should have been in man coverage. In man coverage, well, shoot, we can't put that guy in man coverage, so we should have been in zone. That's called resulting, and you just simply can't live that way. You can't be successful that way. Because you got to have a little bit of backbone in this business also, which I assure you that we do. But in the same token, you have to be willing to adapt and change, and making sure that you're putting your personnel in the best possible situation to be successful. Overall, as you evaluate, and we'll continue to evaluate everything, but, in terms of how we practice, what we preach, what we do, we won't change a lick.
Was that a tough lesson just to learn as a coach to, obviously you have to look self-critically at your approach, but also to know, like, if guys aren't doing what you're coaching them to do, how do you balance that, or how did you learn to balance that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, 20 years in it, you get a couple different decisions to make. I think, if you call yourself a good coach, then you got to believe in the things that you're coaching. You also got to also make sure that you don't fall into the excuse business. Well, the call was good. It's just simply my player couldn't get it done. That's a trap, and obviously that's not a great recipe to be very quality at this business, at this profession. Certainly not a leader of a group of men. And so, no, it is a balance. Right? I think that the chief thing is you got to look at it. Specifically, not just in game day. That's when you're judged. That's when results matter. That's the chief thing that you look at. But that's not simply it. How you practice it. The one thing that we're in practice on Tuesdays. So some of those things you saw on Saturday, you saw it the first time. We saw it on a Tuesday. Now you hoped you could get it corrected before then. I saw that in the spring. Now the scary ones you saw in spring football. You're sitting there like, how 12 months into this thing. Why is that still showing up? And so then you look at it, are we asking them to do things that they can't do? And then you say, well, what can we change? And then, like I said, is if it's a situation where we can't play man coverage, so we got to play in zone. That's obviously blitz. It's the same thing offensively. If you run the ball, you stop it, what we should have thrown. And that's a slippery slope, and that's a real recipe to be very deficient. But no, it's an ongoing process, without question. And that's the appropriate thing to do. And the first bullet that you take, is the one that you take yourself, and that's you expect your players to do that as a coach. Put it on us. We got to be better. We didn't get these guys to play at a championship level. That's the headline.
Which will stay on the same side, Stephen.
Alex, Stephen Hawkins with the AP in Dallas. You mentioned obviously playing Tulane at the beginning of last year. Michael Pratt, what have you seen in his development from what you saw in that game to what you've seen on film since then? Yeah,
just a tough competitor. I think he has anticipation skills in terms of throwing the football. Willing to stand in the pocket versus some pressure situations. Can deliver it, both on time and kind of off schedule, and still put it in a position where his playmakers can be successful. You see a competitor on film. I mean, that's what we saw a year ago. The score went a certain way early in the game, and then we're fighting for our life at the tail end of the game. Well, that's a credit to them, and again, fire another bullet at us as coaches for not finishing the appropriate way. No, but nothing but impressed. I mean, that looked like probably a championship football team that maybe was on the break, which it's easy to say now, connecting the dots that way. But certainly you saw evidence of that, and you you got a quarterback, man, you got a shot, and they certainly have one.
Go on the other side, front row.
Gary Smith, TimesPicayune.com. Your defense has been really good at forcing turnovers this year, and Tulane's offense has been really good at holding onto the ball. How key is that dynamic going to be, and do you have confidence that you can force turnovers on anyone?
Yeah, we just dropped a couple picks in practice, so it's a bad time to ask. No, it's a major piece of the equation. That's ongoing, and you know, kind of going back to talking big picture defensively. It can't be that's the one thing you're good at. You know, it's designed to be one aspect of finishing football plays that allows us to get the ball back to the offense. The byproduct is we expect to get the ball back to the offense. Hopefully, there's an anticipation. Worst case scenario, we tackle the ball. And that's one of the things we talk to the guys constantly about. And we say, okay, what's your want-to level? You know, wanting to make a play. We're not talking about when the ball is snapped. We're talking about pre-snap. You know, one of the things we talk to the guys, if I anticipate when the ball's in the air to pick it off, then I'll never be surprised when I get a PBU. If I think I'm going to get a PBU, I'll never be surprised when I make a tackle. If I expect to make a tackle, I'll never be surprised when the second guy ain't punching that ball out to give ourselves a chance to get a takeaway. But no, takeaways win games. They do. I mean, you can study it. You can study a lot of different factors, but you can steal possessions. I know it's obvious, but sometimes, just because it is obvious doesn't make it any less true. Because takeaways do equal victory. We're not here. We're not in this bowl game without it. Obviously Caleb had a great year, and it sure is nice to give him 2, 3, 4 extra possessions on a game. But that's our sole purpose in taking the field. We believe it. We believe it because it's true. And takeaways did equal victory in the Pac-12 championship game. It just went against us, and that's one of the things we talk to the guys. We talk about out-efforting our opponent, and we got out-efforted by Utah. We talk about out-physical our opponent. We got out-physical by Utah. We talk about doing our job and execute. We got to execute it. We say takeaways equal victory. They got 3, we got 1. We lost that game. You change that script, and literally, if you change that 1, if we get 3, they get 1. The outcome of the game is completely different, in my opinion. So, no, it's big time. It's real, and we got to find a way to get our fair share.
We'll go same side, second row.
Ava Brand here with TMA in Goodyear. You talked about quarterback Michael Pratt, but Ty J. Spears also has his 700-yard rushing games, the longest streak in the nation. Tough runner to bring down, 11th most evaded tackles in the nation. What goes into preparing facing a running back like Spears? Yeah,
and that's the challenge is they put you in constant conflict. Not all, but the majority of their run game includes the RPO aspect of things, the ability to throw the ball down the field. So the easy answer is trying to get extra hats on them. That's difficult to do. Being sound in the pass game as well, but certainly from a consistency standpoint, making sure that having gap integrity, making sure we got the appropriate bodies where we need them, and have the appropriate bodies where we need them with intent to get that individual on the ground. And sometimes even when you don't, if you're able to to stop the charge and just put him in a position where he's got to check his feet. Now the problem is the film would suggest that sometimes when he's at his best, because that stop-go, that change of direction, that start-stop is some guys got it, some guys don't, and he certainly does. And so, no, that'll be a major challenge for us to I say contain, limit, do the best job we can to, find a way to be effective in the run game.
We've got time for 2 more. We'll start here, and then we'll go right next door. Go ahead.
Adam Grossbard, Orange County Register. Alex, what are some of the challenges of trying to build a roster that can compete defensively for a Pac-12 championship next year, while also looking ahead to the different personnel and formations and things that you'll face in the Big Ten in 2 years?
Yeah, and I think part of it is number one, you don't have the luxury of really looking ahead, and certainly in how college football is constantly changing. You used to look at your board and look at in 2 years and 3 years, and you kind of had this ultimate plan because you kind of knew who was going to be in your roster in 2 or 3 years. It's just not the way it is anymore. And so added to that, obviously, you talk about being in a new conference. I think the challenge with a place like USC is you have to make sure that you don't fall in the trap of simply saying we're having a quality insert conference name program. You got to look at it through the lens of, okay, can this individual, as you bring him in, can he project with your development to play in the National Football League, and the best teams in this country have the most of those individuals. Right now, they got to be team guys. There's a lot of elements to this. This is not just a talent acquisition. All-star teams typically isn't the necessary recipe to always be successful. And even if you had that end goal, can you keep them around long enough to kind of see it see it come to fruition. The biggest thing in our sport is the development piece, is making sure, and that still matters, is one of the things that we have and will continue to do is you got to look at your current roster and say, how can you develop those individuals to play at a higher level, right? And believe me, we've done that. Now with that, every year you continue to add to your program. That's not new. Now what's new is the availability to maybe get a 20-year-old as opposed to an 18-year-old. Now there's the plus and minus to that, because you get a chance to have the 18-year-old around a little bit longer than maybe that older individual, and only a little bit of eligibility left. But the main, as we evaluate guys, we're telling the high school guys this is when we're recruiting, we're basically evaluating them against every guy that we think we can get in the transfer portal. You're not being evaluated against every, in this particular case, the 23 class, and that is, we flip the page to go to the 24 class, the freshman from a year now. We're basically looking at through the lens of do we think this individual can help us, for instance, the 23 class that we just signed, can they help us in the 23 season? Can they add to the roster that we have through development over the next 8 months to field a quality football team on a national level? And then is the answer yes, then one, invite them in the program, and then you don't get to draft, so you get a recruitment in your program. And then beyond that, you're going to add guys that might be have history somewhere else. And so no, it's a major challenge. It continues to be, but man, you got to develop, and you got to have guys that want to be a part of us. You guys want to be a part of Trojan football. You guys want to aspire to be in the National Football League, and not from a, it sounds good to say, but I mean, we compete on a day in and day out basis, and then create a roster that says, well, if you're not getting your job done, then we have the availability to put someone else in there for you. And that drives everybody. That's not a negative, that's a positive, man. And you go to practice every single day, and you got to compete just to get a rep on the field. The situation that we find ourselves in right now is a Tuesday, plus or minus is probably still going to be in the starting lineup come Saturday, and that's a struggle. And that's something that you got to adapt. But all of those things factor into building that roster. But this is a national brand, and that's what we signed up for, and also we let the players know that's what they signed up for. So having a quality Pac-12 team, and that's no disrespect, in the insert conference, that's not Pac-12, SEC, Big 12, I've been in most of those conferences over the course of my career, is you're saying, okay, the expectation at USC is the best players in our program playing in the National Football League. Okay, insert player name, and let's let this thing rip. Coach White in the weight room, development on the field, and let's go. And that maybe they start a career somewhere else, but that still remains to be the challenge for us.
We'll take one final one on this side, right?
Ryan Grinch, LA Times. Alex, when you were at Oklahoma, the 2019 defense seemed to take a big step forward in 2020. Was there any, specific changes that happened over that time, and is that sort of a jump you might be able to see happening here as well?
Yeah, I think you certainly draw from your past, different individuals, obviously in the locker room and that, and so you don't want to say, well, because we had those successes, we'll have the successes this next time around. But you also have a level of confidence and understand that adversity is real. You got to go through some stuff, and you want to skip steps. And I know coaches like to talk like this, and believe me, not trying to spin a tail here. That's fact, though. I mean, you look at some of these programs, you say, well, how'd they get to where they got to? Well, they went through some things. They played in a game and found that it takes a little bit more from a preparation standpoint. It's fighting through some stuff. It's getting knocked down. It's getting back up. I mean, the biggest thing in all that was the adversity side of things. And part of that was a group of guys coming together and saying, okay, we're going to play winning football on defense. Now there's a year ago I'm coaching a similar group, and I'll be flat honest with you, we didn't play winning defense. Why? Okay, well I can be a better coach. That's because it's a different spot. We'll move on. But that's the easy answer. And so no, it is are we willing to? What's our goal as an organization? Our goal as an organization is to produce as NFL football players. You guys worried about individual successes. In this process, we tell recruits this: the individual has to win, the program has to win. And so if we're not going to score touchdowns on defense, we're expected to get stops and play at a high level. And a group of guys buy into that and believe in that and wanted to play winning defense. And so we got to make sure that guys understand that that's the expectation. And that's what off season's about. That's what this past month's been about. We have flat gotten after it over the last X number of days, like nobody, and that part kind of going back to that process. We were limited a little bit just because it was a college football playoff team, but this is one that we made progress over the last month. It better show up on January 2nd, but that a lot of programs don't do in spring football, and some don't in fall camp. I mean, just an expectation that we're going to play at a high level every single day. There's one standard, there's one version of each individual guy as we go through it. We need a group of guys that believe in that and ultimately go do it, right? And they have a coaching staff that delivers a plan and gets them to play at a high level. You can have those successes. So that, believe me, that's our expectation. We're going to go do it.
Mr. Grinch, thank you for your time.